Hercules must be cancelled. Now, I know I sound dramatic. You know, you can call me the dramatic nerd, but hear me out. Hercules murdered his wife and kids. That's a fact. Now, the only thing that could be questionable was whether he was in his sane mind or not. You know how these Greeks work, where these Greek gods like Hera, they get involved and, you know, things happen and then boom, Hercules is a murderer. Now, I'm not here to get into the legal aspect, you know, because that's not my area of expertise. However, I do want to get into how Hercules atoned for his heinous crimes. Long story short, Hercules had to serve his bitch of a cousin Eurystheus in order to atone for his sins. And Eurystheus, you know, he's a typical Greek king who likes to whip his dick out and show people who's boss, especially Hercules, who's, you know, half god. So what he does for Hercules is he tells him that he has to complete 10 incredibly difficult labors in order to atone for his sins and gain his freedom back. So Hercules, he goes out into the Greek world, completes those labors. It takes him 10 years to complete those 10 labors. He comes back happy, thinking that he finally got his freedom. But Eurystheus, being the punk that he is, tells Hercules that he actually didn't get his freedom back because 2 of his labors were invalid because he got a little bit of help for them. So he sends Hercules back out into the cruel Greek world to complete 2 more labors, which Hercules does, and then he finally gets his freedom. Now, you're probably thinking, what's the point of the story? It sounds like typical Greek mythology, and it is. But there's actually a lot more to the story than you think. And the only reason I say that is because I did some research. And when I say research, I really mean I went on Wikipedia and did some readings. But anyways, when I was on Wikipedia reading about Hercules' 12 labors, I came upon a part where it mentioned how some ancient Greek writers and thinkers found allegorical meanings of a moral, philosophical, and psychological nature in Hercules' labors. And what it really came down to is that they found that each labor represented a vice. Listen, I'm no expert on Greek mythology, so I'm going to read that passage that I found on Wikipedia based off of an ancient Greek writer that really enforces the point on how each labor represented a vice. I turn to Hercules. We must not suppose he attained such power in those days as a result of his physical strength. Rather, he was a man of intellect, an initiate in heavenly wisdom who, as it were, shed light on philosophy, which had been hidden in deep darkness. The most authoritative of the Stoics agree with this account. The boar which he overcame is the common incontinence of men. The lion is the indiscriminate rush towards improper goals. In the same way, by fettering irrational passions, he gave rise to the belief that he had fettered the violent bull. He banished cowardice also from the world, in the shape of the hind of Cernia. There was another labor too, not properly so called, in which he cleared out the mass of dung. In other words, the foulness that disfigures humanity. The birds he scattered are the windy hopes that feed our lives. The many-headed hydra that he burned, as it were, with the fires of exhortation, is pleasure, which begins to grow again as soon as it is cut out. One of the things I want you to take away from the myth of Hercules is the fact that your bad habits or vices are not unique to you. Men have been suffering through all those types of vices since the beginning of time. So when you're being hard on yourself for, fapping or not really committing to your good habits, just remind yourself that it's not only you who's going through it. That being said, another thing I want you to take away from the myth of Hercules, based off of those ancient Greek writers and thinkers, is that your journey in trying to get rid of those bad habits is as noble as the adventures of Hercules. You have to realize that being able to conquer your vices within you is so much more honorable and a lot more difficult than any crazy adventure that you could think of in the external world. And that's why it's kind of important to remind yourself of the myth of Hercules, because it's not about his crazy adventures. It's about man's pursuit in conquering his vices so that he can become that well-rounded individual that he's striving for. So again, don't be hard on yourself or belittle yourself when you're trying to resolve your bad habits. Remind yourself that it's a noble journey to be able to work on yourself. And if we're being honest, if it took Hercules 12 years to complete his 12 labors, I'm pretty sure that you can conquer your vices faster than him. Alright guys, that's it for today. Thank you again for watching. Please don't forget to like this video, comment, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to my newsletter for some exclusive content. But other than that, guys, don't forget, you're not just any type of nerd, you're a charismatic nerd.